President Pfizer, Mr. Vice President, Governor, Congressman Thomas, Senator Wiley, Mr. Webb, Mr. Bell, scientists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your president having made me an honorary visiting professor, and I will assure you that my first lecture will be very brief. I am delighted to be here, and I'm particularly delighted to be here on this occasion. We meet at a college noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted for strength. And we stand in need of all three, for we meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, and in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. The greater our knowledge increases, the greater our ignorance unfolds. Despite the striking fact that most of the scientists the world has ever known are alive working today, despite the fact that this nation's own scientific manpower is doubling every 12 years in a rate of growth more than 3 times than of our population as a whole. Despite that, the vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective compression. No man can fully guess how far and how fast we have come, but condense, if you will, the 50,000 years of man's recorded history in a time span of but a half century. Stated in these terms, we know very little about the first 40 years, except at the end of them, advanced men had learned to use the skins of animals to cover them. Then, about 10 years ago, under the standard, man emerged from his caves to construct other kinds of shelter. Only 5 years ago, man learned to ride and use carts with wheels. Christianity began less than 2 years ago. The printing press came this year, and then, only 2 months ago, during this whole 50-year span of human history, the steam engine provided a new source of power. Newton explored the meaning of gravity. Last month, electric lights and telephones and automobiles and airplanes became available. Only last week we did develop penicillin and television and nuclear power. And now, if America's new spacecraft succeeds in reaching Venus, we will have literally reached the stars before midnight tonight. This is a breathtaking pace. And such pace cannot help but it creates new ills as it dispels old. New ignorance, new problems, new dangers. Surely the opening vistas of space promise high costs and hardship, as well as high reward. So it is not surprising that some would have us stay where we are a little longer to rest, to wait. But this city of Houston, this state of Texas, this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them. This country was conquered by those who moved forward, and so will space. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do other things, not because they're easy, but because they are hard, because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one which we are willing to accept, one which we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we are intent to win, and the others too. It is for these reasons that I regard the decision last year to shift our efforts in space from low to high gear was among the most important decisions that will be made during my incumbency in the Office of Presidency. In the last 24 hours, we have seen facilities now being created for the greatest and most complex exploration in man's history. We have seen a site where 5 F1 rocket engines, each one as powerful as all 8 engines of the Saturn combined, will be clustered together to make the advanced Saturn missile. Assembled in a new building to be built at Cape Canaveral, as tall as a 48-story structure, as wide as a city block, and as long as 2 lengths of this field. Within the last 90 months, at least 45 satellites have circled the Earth. Some 40 of them were made in the United States of America. And they were far more sophisticated and supplied far more knowledge to the people of the world than those of the Soviet Union. We have had our failures, but so have others, even if they do not admit them. And they may be less public. To be sure, we are behind, and we will be behind for some time in manned flight. But we do not intend to stay behind, and in this decade we shall make it up and move ahead. However, I think we are going to do it. And I don't think that we ought to waste any money, but I think we ought to do the job. And this job will be done in the decade of the 60s. It will be done while some of you are still here at this school, at this college and university. It will be done during the terms of office of some people who sit here on this platform. But it will be done. And it will be done before the end of this decade. I am delighted that this university is playing a part in putting a man on the moon as part of a great national effort to the United States of America. Many years ago, the great British explorer, George Mallory, who was to die at Mount Everest, was asked why he wanted to climb it. And he said, because it is there. Well, space is there, and we are going to climb it. And the moon and the planets are there. And new hopes for knowledge and peace are there. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked. Thank you.